Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Big Chad and Friends. I am your host, the one and only Big Chad, where on this podcast, I interview musicians, artists, creative people, those who I think bring something cool, unique, and interesting to the world, and give you a little insight into their life and what makes them tick. And on today's episode, we have a lovely guest. He is the lead singer, frontman, powerhouse dude himself of the wonderful band Careful Gaze. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the stage, Gabe Reasoner. I even have a little...
Hello.
Yeah, see if I can do it.
Oh, shit.
Look at that. Oh. Right.
Can I say the S word?
Oh, you can curse all you want. I don't care.
Okay, I said shit.
You can say shit. You can say whatever. There's no FCC here or whatever it is that regulates us. Yeah.
Good to know.
So how you been?
Good. I just saw you not too long ago.
True. It was a couple weeks ago where we had the infamous power outage in the middle of our session. That was super fun.
That was super fun.
So we were... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say it was right in between my throat and body being destroyed by sickness for 2 different times.
Yeah, you were not feeling super hot or getting over feeling not super hot. But so what happened, people, is that we were in the middle of a recording session, recording vocals, and literally not just the lights went out, but the power to the entire area went out. Some Yahoo was working on electrical in the room next to us and somehow managed to blow a fuse by crossing a wire, and yeah, so that was fun. So we sat in darkness for a good 15 or 20 minutes before we finished recording. But moral of the story, we got her done.
Yep. I like the part where he was like, I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't know what happened.
And I'm like, I don't do electrical, and I know what happened. These 2 wires are exposed, touched, and that's not, so... All right, man, let's get into it. I always like to start these interviews with a little segment that I call First Date Questions. I'm just going to rapid fire you some questions just to get to know you. Some are serious, some are cheesy, mostly cheesy, but we'll just roll. So, favorite food?
Ooh. Oh, I'm going to overthink all of these. Oh, no. Probably a really good gobi Manchurian.
What is that?
It's like... It's kind of like Indian cauliflower wings.
Oh, I would get down on that.
Yeah, it's like breaded and seasoned really nicely, and usually has like some kind of sauce on it. And if you get it at like a really good place like Darbar in Minneapolis or something, it's just so good. So that's probably like, I like a lot of food, but that's probably what comes to mind first, I would say.
Are they fried?
That's a good question. I mean, I think either that or they're either fried or baked.
But they're crispy?
They're a little bit crispy. They get soft, with the sauce on it. And
yeah.
They do have some kind of breading. I honestly don't know the secret. It might be just like a clay oven. I don't know. I would love to know. I should look it up.
The cauliflower is like slowly infiltrating other like food areas. Like it's pizza crust. Yep. It's become pasta, and I'm all for it. Like I love cauliflower. Like go bring it on. You know what I mean? It's just making its way into other foods.
The takeover.
The takeover is real. Cauliflower.
Yep.
All right. So to tie into favorite food, favorite beverage.
Coffee. I mean water. I guess water, but coffee.
Now, are you a coffee black or do you spice it up a little bit?
I'm like in between black coffee and getting like really extravagant. Like I just typically do like an oat milk or almond milk, and that's usually it.
Okay.
I don't like the frappuccinos anymore. I had too many of those when I was like 15 years old. I think I almost overdosed on them, and then I was like, I gotta stop.
Yeah, I got introduced to like kind of faint like lattes and stuff when I was young, and like people are like, coffee is going to stunt your growth. It did not work. Let me tell you that right now. That did not work. All right. So, favorite toy as a kid?
I feel like it was probably collectively my G.I. Joe action figures. I would typically go once per week and buy a set of 2 action figures. It was usually like 1 G.I. Joe, 1 anti-GI, whatever, Cobra? Is that what they were?
The Cobra. Yeah, the Cobra Kai. Yeah.
So I would get like a 2-pack and create various like storylines with those by myself because I was an only child. Dude. It sounds sad, and it was, but I liked those things.
No, dude, I did the same thing. I had like, for me, it was G.I. Joes and then like Star Wars action figures, and I would just create massive storylines in my head. and just have a ball. My parents loved it because I was like totally self-entertained. They're like, Chad's got action figures, we'll deuce out for the weekend. You know what I mean? Like,
man, I wish that was the case. I didn't get to have a weekend alone when I was a kid, but I still played with the GI Joes. Damn it.
Yeah. Favorite current TV show or show that you're binge watching? Doesn't have to be a new TV show. Just what is on your TV?
Oh, it's kind of embarrassing, but it's Catfish.
Oh, the MTV show?
Yeah.
Dude, so good.
Yep, I've been going through Catfish because I had seen like specific scenes from it, but I realized I had never actually tried to watch like a full episode.
Uh-huh.
So I did, and yeah, I don't know. It's like always just really interesting to see like what situations people are in and kind of like what comes of them.
It's a crazy show, man. Like that's bonkers.
It's nuts.
All right, possibly my favorite question. What breed of dog would you be?
I might be a corgi.
Dude, they're so adorable.
I might be just kind of a little guy, a little buddy walking around with stubby legs.
And the cute little, they got the little no-tail bum action going on. It's adorable.
Yeah, I think I'd be a corgi.
I can see it. I like it. All right, first CD or album you ever owned?
It was probably some kind of Christian album. So, but as far as like personal ownership of like spending my money on it,
yeah,
I'm gonna say probably, I think it might have been Truthless Heroes by Project 86, which is still a Christian album, but it's a little bit more of an edgy, new metal, Christian new metal album. It's a really good album. I think it still probably holds up for the most part.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so favorite activity to do outside of music?
Anytime that I can walk or run and just spend time in nature.
You're a big runner. I do remember that. Like you enjoy getting out there and getting your sweat on for sure.
Yeah. I actually ran I ran every day in 2020 and I have flat feet. And so that's not a good combo usually. And, I ended up getting some like arthritis in my feet. So I can't do it as much as I would like, but I can, like walk obviously and stuff, and I can still run some. But yeah, just like going out on a nice trail that just goes like into the middle of nowhere, like by the river or something, and just running. That's a super, super nice, just meditative thing to do for me.
No, I dig that for sure. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
First instrument you ever owned?
Drums. I had a little kid's drum set that I would bang on.
And I'm sure parents love that one.
Yeah, they took a lot of pictures, so I guess they didn't hate it too much. But that was the first thing I think, at least that I remember. And then I had, guitars, like acoustics and electrics and all of that growing up too.
It's funny. I think you're like the second or third like vocalist who's currently a vocalist now who started on drums that I've talked to. It's an interesting parallel. I'm not quite sure how that happens, but it's like you go from like a non-singing instrument to singing.
Yeah.
It's an interesting dichotomy there. All right, final question. What would people be surprised to find on your playlist?
I'm going to say the Tedeschi Trucks Band. It's a guitarist, I believe, Derek Trucks, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
He plays for the Allman Brothers.
Yep.
Really crazy guitarist, like plays a lot of slide guitar, really good, talented. And he and his wife have a band called the Tedeschi Trucks Band. And I was driving in the middle of nowhere out of a campsite in Wisconsin to a wedding in the middle of nowhere in Minnesota. And I had no cell service whatsoever. And even the stuff that I had like downloaded wasn't showing up on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, I guess it's the radio for me. And I scanned through the frequencies and it would not land on a radio station for the longest time. Finally it did. And that's what came on. And I was like, all right. And so I just started listening to them, and I've been a fan since then, since like late summer this year.
Awesome. I'll have to check them out. Because I know Derek Trucks, but I didn't know he had like a band. He was with his wife, you said?
Yeah, yep. And his wife's like the vocalist, and she plays guitar too. And then yeah, it's just like a really big like kind of, I don't know if it's a super group because I don't know how well known everybody is, but it's just like a really big full lineup band, and they play like roots rock basically.
Yeah.
And it doesn't at all sound like anything that I've ever made or done. So that's probably what people would be surprised of.
That's awesome. I have to check that out because I mean he's a hell of a guitar player, no question.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, amazing guitarist.
no joke. Well, that concludes our first date questions, our get to know Gabe section
Nice.
there. All right, so let's talk more about the band, Careful Gaze.
Yep.
First off, you guys are fantastic. I mean,
Thank
from
you.
recordings to live. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to play with you guys. I've been fortunate enough to see you guys. How did Careful Gaze come to be? Give me the backstory from like it being a thought to it being what it is now. How did it Careful Gaze become Careful Gaze?
Yeah. In 2013, the band that I was in, I was like pretty much just out of high school. And, you know, I think maybe not always, but a lot of times people, you know, you're in that first band if you start when you're young and you feel like that's the one that's going to make it and the one that's going to be the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we broke up because people were moving away and things had just changed. So we had our last show, and I just remember seeing all the people in the room and just being like, I can't stop doing this no matter what I do. So I started, basically the concept was I would be doing all the instruments and production, and like, so it would be kind of like electronic post-hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
So I started just playing shows with just myself. So I would have like tracks and play some percussion and have synth and do vocals. And it was way less cool than it sounds like. Like it was honestly a train wreck because I didn't know how to do it properly. Like I had no training on how to be a one-person band. And so I started getting burnt out of that kind of within like a year. But I did a full EP like that. It wasn't under the name Careful Gaze. It was under the name Hunter Dumped Us Here. And I recorded actually at Catamount Studios in Cedar Falls, which is where Stone Sour recorded their first album.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Because I was like, I'm gonna do this the pro way, and I went in there and recorded, and that was my first like actual professional studio recording experience. That wasn't like a basement or someone's living room or something. Not that that's you know, those are still, they all have their place, but it was interesting, and I'm just like surprised they even took the project, honestly. But got tired of doing that, and then started playing acoustic shows, and I was, you know, like, hey, I'm not really a super great guitarist, and so I asked my friend Preston, you just want to come play acoustic with me at some coffee shops when I play piano and do, you know, sing and do some emo covers and some of my own stuff. So Preston started playing with me, and as soon as he did that, I was like, okay, we got something here. Like we write really well together. Like our styles go really well together. And yeah, so basically from that point forward, we became a band, and we're doing.
Preston's an OG member then. I didn't know that. So he's okay.
Preston's been around. He was the first person to actually join what became Careful Gaze.
Okay.
And you know, we've had different drummers over the years until we got to Ben, which is our present day drummer. But Aslan, the bass player for the band now, he had just moved back. He was in the high school band I was in, and he had just moved back from Colorado, so he joined the band when he moved back, and we released one like full-length album under Hunter Dumped Us Here, and moved up here into Minneapolis in 2017. And I was just like, I want to just kind of not start over, like carry it on, but I also want to like rebrand and just have kind of a fresh take on everything, and do like a little darker, heavier sound than what we were doing before.
So was it like a whole band decision to move to the Minneapolis area?
Kind of. It was 3 out of 4 people. One, our drummer at the time is very tied to Iowa where we lived, still lives there. So he didn't follow us up. And at first we were trying to do the like half and half thing where we would be partly in Iowa and partially here. And that was just like, at that point was really hard to maintain. And we were kind of like wanting different things stylistically. So Preston and Aslan gradually followed me up to Minneapolis at different times, and then the drummer parted ways. And so then we had a line in a song that was, it's about raising up a tree, like raising a tree from like life to death, basically. And the line of the song was, keep me safe under your careful gaze. Let every naive leaf that stems be a memory we've made. So when we were talking about names, that one got brought up, and I was like, Careful Gaze, I like that, and it still holds some like significance.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to our song Highway Sideways from 2019 under Careful Gaze name, you can hear that sample of that song. It starts off the album, starts off Highway Sideways.
That's cool. So it's like all kind of like...
Yeah. So it's like a little bit of like, here's the paying respects to the past, but also like moving forward, we're doing a different thing. So yeah, basically since like 2018, we just hit it like super hard as Careful Gaze, and that, for the last like 4.5 years, we've been doing it under that name.
Well, you guys are doing a damn good job, because I look at like your Spotify numbers and like your YouTube views and everything, and I'm just kind of like, holy shit! Like,
thank you.
Well done.
Thanks. It's an interesting, and it's all an interesting game to play.
That's exactly what it is. It's sad, but it's a game to a certain extent, and we can get into more of that later. But no, 100%.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to talk to you about is your songs and songwriting, because you guys have a very cool, eclectic, but not. It's like different, but it's still you, like song to song type of thing. I don't know, because I was going through your catalog today, and yesterday. And like, I knew it was you guys, obviously, but you have such different takes on yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So from a songwriting perspective, where you guys come from? Like, where's the inspiration strike? What do you guys draw inspiration from? How does that kind of come together for you guys?
It comes from like everything that I've done musically has always been a very like kind of raw emotional thing. It's kind of always been a goal of mine. Like we don't really have like a lot of happy songs necessarily. And probably the song that we tracked originally with you, where you mixed it and stuff from 2021, like that's probably our happiest song that we've ever done.
That is an upbeater for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But so I've always liked the idea of just having very like raw emotional songs that you can really just kind of like immediately be in when you listen to them, and immediately be like, okay, even if I haven't gone through the same things that this person that's singing, the narrator has gone through, like I can still relate to it in some way, like I can still feel what's going on. So that's kind of always been like the concept of it, and the influences and the inspiration. I've always wanted to have it be just an experience. Like I want, when someone listens to our music or sees our live show, I would like it if they walked away feeling like they had like an experience, and not just like, oh yeah, I watched a live show, or oh yeah, I listened to this song and it was fine. And I know that's not always going to happen, but that's my goal, is to try to make that happen as much as possible. And I was like a death metal kid and an indie rock kid, so I was listening to like, Arcade Fire and like indie rock bands like that, while I was also listening to like Killswitch Engage, even like really heavy stuff like Woe of Tyrants and like deathcore, like As Blood Runs Black and stuff like that growing up. So I think that's part of where the eclectic side comes from, is like we've never wanted to be like a swancore band like Dance Gavin Dance, or like we're a post-hardcore band, but we've never wanted to be Glassjaw. We've never wanted to be, Thrice. I mean, Thrice is probably the closest to what we've wanted to be, but
yeah, okay.
Like, I would just say that basically I want to be able to include moments of extreme like heaviness and aggression and emotion, but also have moments of like a different type of emotion of kind of like reprieve.
Yeah.
And I think we push that to the limit, I think, more every time we release something. Like with our album that we released this year, we definitely push that harder, where it's like there's moments of just like complete empty, like dead quietness, and then there's moments of just like the loudest and heaviest we've been. So
well, I mean, you guys 1000%, like I get that. Like I go on an emotional journey both musically and lyrically with your guys' songs. It's like fun and cool in that way. Like it's now, whether or not I'm getting the same message out of it that you put into it, that's here nor there, but it's taking me on a journey. Like it's making me think, it's making me feel.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big reason I'm happy you're here, and I want to and talk more about it. Is that like in terms of songwriting, like there's a lot of, I guess, depth is the word I'm looking for, maybe. But it hits you in the feels, and it really gets that emotion across.
No, that's depth. That's a high praise for like what I want to do. So that's appreciated for sure.
Yeah. So now to get a little more on like, I guess, the technical nerdy side of songwriting, when you take a stab at it, do you have like a concept in your head, or do you have a melody idea, or is it a guitar idea, or is it just different every single time?
Yeah, it's different. A lot of my favorite songs have started off as just like acoustic demos where I recorded them on my phone. Like both the opening and closing track of our latest album were done just me and an acoustic guitar, recorded on my phone, send it to the group. They listen to it, and then the next time we get together at the rehearsal space, we turn it into a full band song. And then
amazing. What I was going to say, thank God we have phones to record ideas. I can't imagine the amount of song ideas I've lost pre smartphone, where it's like I'm going to remember that later, and then I never do. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Or like before that, even just before having a smartphone, and maybe like you didn't have like a portable Tascam recorder, and so if you wanted to record, you'd have to like actually go to your friends that had a studio to like put down an idea. Like it's definitely gotten way easier to create things. And sometimes if I'm like driving and I get like a melody or a lyric stuck in my head, I will just like record just me doing that in the car, just to make sure that I don't lose it.
Yep.
If it's something where I'm like, okay, this is really good. But yeah, so it's been different. Like some of the songs start like that. Some of the songs have been where, we jam it out instrumentally, and then I bring lyrics to the table. I've always got lyrics ready to go that aren't used, basically.
Oh, so you have like a catalog kind of like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I almost write lyrics more like poetry a lot of the time, where I don't know where it's going yet, and I just write it out, and then I shape it to the song. So maybe I cut out words, or I add words, or I skip lines, like things like that. I kind of like mold it to the instrumental track sometimes.
Yeah.
And then, as we've continued to be a band and everybody has kind of gotten better gear and better setups, we're also to the point now where we can demo things out in the DAW too. So like sometimes we'll do that sort of writing where like our drummer will do, a MIDI drum, just map out the drums, and then we'll start adding things onto it, and then just do some like demo recordings and write that way, which is also a really fun way to write. So it's a little bit of everything. Yeah,
so especially it's kind of funny you bring it up, because I had that conversation with a musician buddy of mine the other day, and it's like, at least for me and my bands, like songwriting is so different than it was like 5 years ago. Like where there's still, not dismissing getting in a room and jamming. I mean, that's still, I think, one of the best ways to hack it out. But like you're creating a tangible demo while you're writing.
Yeah.
And I just think, at least for me, that's really improved us, because you could hear the little intricacies that you may not be able to hear when you got earplugs in playing at 115 decibels.
Yeah.
And you could really hash things out. So it's a kind of a cool, the technologies, I think, change the way we can write and approach music for the better, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
So, and then just because the nerd in me knows, what DAW do you guys usually use when you write?
So there's a little bit of a turf war. So I think it's, most of us use Reaper just because of how accessible that is, but some of us also use Logic. So it's a little bit of both, but I mean, almost all of the like significant stuff we've done has been in Logic, just because Bailey, our guitarist, who is has been trained, for recording and stuff, and went to school for it. Like he has Logic, so whenever we do anything that's more like official as far as like demoing goes, it's usually through Logic.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're kind of the same way, like sort of the same way. Like we demo pretty much everything in Logic, But then when we throw it all together, it's Pro Tools. So like substitute Pro Tools for Reaper, because that's what I was brought up on, trained on. So yeah, it's one of them. One of those things. Yep. So now I'm curious to get your input as a songwriter. Mm-hmm. Listening to more like popular music nowadays, it just seems like it's lacking substance to me. Like if you were to take popular music from like 10 years ago and compare it to like today, definitely 20 years ago, I don't know. It just almost feels empty. And I'm just kind of curious, as a songwriter, what do you think is lacking and missing from songs now as compared to years past?
Whatever was in Waiting for Tonight by Jennifer Lopez. It's gone. That song is magic.
Dude, you're not joking.
I literally, like, me being just a dumb teenager, I would hear that song come on at a pizza shop I worked in when I was younger. And I was like, I got to find out what this song is. And every time I would try to Google the lyrics, it would come up with Jennifer Lopez. I was like, no, there's no way that it's that. It's too electro house. And then I realized it was, and I was like, damn. But no, to answer your question, actually, what do I think it's lacking? I think that a lot of times it gets to be too formula based, almost. And just like we're talking, that everybody having access to basically be able to record themselves and easily produce things, just as we're talking about how that's a positive, I think that it's definitely in some ways had maybe a negative impact on quality when it comes to it's so easy to just kind of shit something out now.
Yeah.
It's easier than it's ever been to just kind of shit something out. And so I feel like that's what happens. And not just in like standard pop, but even in like I can't listen to a lot of the like highly produced post-hardcore bands. Not to sound like like I'm stuck up or anything, but it's hard for me to listen to the really popular, like overly produced metal and hardcore, and not necessarily hardcore, but like post-hardcore, just because I feel like it's the same thing where when I listen to it, it just feels like I'm listening to a product. And maybe that's because that's what people have figured out that they need to do to be able to actually get the reach that they want.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of times you just don't get the passion that you get out of something like Let Live or a band like that, or some of like the older bands from before, just anyone was able to make like super highly produced music. I don't know.
No, I think go ahead.
I think that's what it is. I think it's like a lot of times it's just so like, all right, I got the piano roll and I drop my MIDI chord pack that I bought off of a YouTube ad in here, and then I throw in a vocal and I put an auto tune on it, and then I say like, I'm fucking drunk now, and then like that's all I got to do, like, and then I've got a song and it's on SoundCloud and it's on Spotify, and I mean that's the thing too. Everybody can get their music on Spotify now, super easy, which is cool, but also like it means that there is some shit on there, and I think that's probably overall what has changed with it, in my opinion.
No, I love that where you said it's like a formula and a product, and I think people are more focused on and I don't blame them, I get it, on formulating a successful formula and product from someone before them rather than really trying to craft their art.
Yeah, for sure.
So no, I agree with that for sure. So now I want to talk about your voice.
Okay.
Because let me tell you, man, what comes out of your mouth when you talk versus what comes out on your guys' recordings is drastically different. And I mean that in the most positive way like possible, because it's so. I remember the first time I heard you sing, because I knew you before I heard you, because I knew you through American Musical Supply, and so I met you that way. And then they're like, you gotta check out Gabe's band. I'm like, all right. And I listened. I was like, that is not Gabe. There's no way in hell that is Gabe. And I mean, it is obviously, but you have this uncanny ability to, I almost want to say, play characters to a certain extent. I don't know if that's the right verbiage, but you were able to create these awesome just entities on record that are so different from like knowing you as you versus knowing you on a record. I mean, I love it. And I guess, like, where did you find your voice? Like, what inspired you as a vocalist and kind of brought you to the direction that you are now?
So much trial and error.
Okay.
I was showing someone recently a video of the band I was talking about that I was in high school, from a video where we played at like a church camp for like a middle school week. So there was just a bunch of like middle schoolers like throwing down to a dubstep breakdown. Because it was during the dubstep metal era, which we all miss.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. But when I watched it, I was like, I bet you I lost like 10% of my voice permanently just from like being in bands in high school and like not knowing what I was doing and just being like, this is how you scream. You quite simply just scream.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, a lot of trial and error. I liked a lot of musicals and theater, and so I think that helped me kind of learn a little bit how to get more of like sort of like a theatrical feel to what I do. But my influences are all over the place as far as like what I listened to a lot growing up, like I've already kind of alluded to.
Yeah.
So I think that it probably like took me just like being on recording enough times and hearing it back and being like, okay, I don't like when I do this type of thing as much as when I do this type of thing. And I don't like how this scream sounds versus how this sounds.
Yeah.
And I think it took literally just doing that so much over and over again until I finally figured out what I like. And I think like a huge part of that was during lockdown and stuff too in 2020. Like I already was pretty established in like my style, but we recorded so many covers and demos and stuff for Patreon. So I was just constantly like almost every day recording my own voice and listening back to it and doing like a rough mix. And you just learn so quickly when you do it that often what you want to do differently and what you need to do differently.
I think that's huge. I mean, I've never thought about that. Like I mean, I relate it to sports because I grew up playing sports, just what you're saying. Like, you know, after we played football, we'd watch film and analyze this worked, this didn't. And wow, you just kind of blew my mind a little bit right there. Like, why wouldn't we do that with our own instruments in our voice? Like, look at what works, what doesn't, what we liked, what we didn't like.
Yeah.
Oh man, you kind of just changed my mental outlook on on at least myself as a performer. Oh, okay.
Well, and I feel like too that's again one of the benefits of everybody basically being able to access a way to record themselves easily. Is like almost anybody, if you have the gear, just like a computer and a cheap interface or something, like you can just record yourself to a track, to an instrumental track, or make a quick track, and like you can so easily learn how you sound and what you want to do differently, that I think it's probably helped a lot of people improve, including myself for sure, because I'm not wasting someone's time, you know, sitting in front of like a Neumann U87 for like 10 hours being like, I don't think I want to do it like that. I think I want to, no, like, there's room for that. It's fine. But like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you know how I am. When I come in, I want to just kind of like get it done and not spend a bunch of extra time like fucking around.
That's another thing that I respect about you as a vocalist is just you come into the studio so prepared with your vocals. Like there's no bullshit, and your consistency, like I could tell that you've practiced and trained yourself and you know what you want, because your consistency is kind of mind-boggling in terms of when you deliver stuff. But man, you really, my brain is so like, dude, why didn't you think of that before? Like treat it like just like it's like watching tape after a sports game. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yep.
So
recording, sorry, but I just thought about this, recording your live set too, like when that shit is brutal. Like especially if you have somebody do like board audio.
Yeah.
Like shout out one of my favorite sound people ever, Scott Jarvie. He has recorded us multiple times on his board and like sent us stuff. And man, when you listen back to that like good quality audio, it feels so different than it did up on stage. And it's so much easier to hear like all the little things. And that's where you kind of think like, okay, there's some give and take there. Like maybe I need to not go quite as hard on stage so I can sound a little bit better. But I also don't want to like stand up there like a pole and do nothing just so I sound like perfect or as close to perfect as possible.
Yeah.
So that's the not only just like studio type setting, but definitely like live setting too.
Yeah.
That's a big, that will make you want to quit music right there.
No, I'll listen back to like, I mean, I'm not singing anything right now, but I'll listen back to some of our shows, like from a drumming perspective. I'll be like, oh,
yeah.
What am I doing? Yeah. So, I mean, obviously with your voice and as people, you know, who are watching this podcast, hopefully, and I highly encourage you guys to check out Careful Gaze. I mean, there's some brutal vocals going on in there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to maintain your voice and keep your voice healthy and functioning? I mean, is there any I always, because the vocalists are always just so fascinating to me, because like if a guitar goes out of tune, you tune it. If you break a drumstick, you grab a new one. Your voice is a part of you, you know what I mean? And so if that gets thrashed, you're fucked. Yeah. So, I mean, what are some things that you do as a vocalist to help prolong your voice?
Well, I've taken lessons on that, especially before this last album, because I wanted to, I'm sort of in, or was in, maybe still am in, a hardcore band called Ringer. And when I did that, it was like 2 sessions, 6 songs, and it's all screaming for the most part. And my voice was just so, like, my throat hurt so bad. My voice was so done afterwards. And I was like, I need to figure out, before we do another Careful Gaze full length, I need to figure out how to take better care of my voice than I am right now, because I don't want to cause permanent damage. And I also just don't want to feel like complete shit when I'm done recording.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, one thing is like a simple thing is if you can pace yourself. You know, I feel like so many projects you're trying to get in and just get it all done as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And if you can like step back a little bit and take the time that you need to get that done, which you don't always have the luxury of doing. But like something like what we did, like I came in and recorded 1 song with you recently, like just spent 1 evening, 1 song, didn't have to like come in and knock out like 10 songs in a day, you know, or some crazy stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So pacing, but as far as the actual like logistics, how you breathe matters, where you project from matters, the stretching, like stretching out your tongue and your throat and your face and your neck, and doing things like that before and after, doing actual vocal warm-ups, warming up your scream, warming up your low register, warming up your high register, throat coat tea, honey. I have a TheraZinc throat spray that I'll spray to. Of course, lots of water.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I try not to smoke anything, you know, before, when I'm trying to do like vocals, either like live or a recording session. Try not to do anything like that. Tobacco pipes. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of those things where it's just like everybody's different, but for me, all of those things are what I do to try to maintain it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought you mentioned that like the lessons that you took coming into this, the record that you guys just did, was like a coach, like almost specialized in aggressive vocals and screaming. Is that, or did I?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Just because I try to do aggressive vocals like on the side, and I know I do them wrong. What was like your biggest takeaway from that? I'm just curious from my own selfish standpoint.
It was just how much of the like basics still apply, like with melodic, like you're not just going to get into just sounding like, you know, Vince from the Acacia Strain or something like that. Like I feel like, maybe not everybody, but at least I've always been like, when I'm taking screaming lessons, I'm going to get into the screaming right away. And it's like, there's so many building blocks of like, do this, don't do this. Mm-hmm. So much of the like basics still apply because you're still using your human voice.
Yeah.
You know, just because you're screaming doesn't mean that suddenly like XYZ just like goes out the window as far as like preparation or treatment or handling. So that's probably like one of the big takeaways that I had is just how much of it was like when I was taking voice lessons as a kid still. And just if you can't just do some like steady basic notes and get those clean, you probably shouldn't be jumping into trying to get like good screams and good tones out of things.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, the building blocks are crucial. I mean, even and then again, especially with your voice, because you only get one.
Exactly. Yeah. It's scary sometimes.
Yeah. No, I remember I had to throw together a quick demo of like 3 songs that needed aggressive vocals on it, and I didn't warm up. I didn't practice ahead of time because it was more so a time constraint. But still, I could have done better, and my voice was just thrashed for like 3 or 4 days after. And I was like, oh, that kind of really made me think like, hey, dude, maybe you should do this. Take a lesson or 2 here and figure out, because that if this is going to be something you want to sustain, you ain't going to do it this way.
Yeah, I know there's some like popular vocalists in hardcore and punk and genres like that where they just say that they just scream and that's how they do it. And I think that maybe can work for some people, but I question, I think, with that, just like the longevity of it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's hard because like I need to sing clean stuff too. Like I if it was all screaming, like maybe it'd be fine, but like I have to hit high things clean and low things clean. And if I'm just constantly like shredding my throat, it's going to make it a lot harder to do that for the rest of the time.
So to tie into throat shredding, not really, but kind of, your guys' live shows, holy shit. I'm using the term like, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or whatever the hell it is, because like, again, the you that I know is this calm, mild-mannered, chill, just dude. And then holy shit, when you get on stage, it's like an experience. I mean, everyone's the same way. I mean, like, it's just insane. So, I mean, obviously you can't speak for everyone in your band, but like, was there a moment or something that kind of helped craft your stage vibe or stage presence, or was it something that came naturally, or was it like, I'm just kind of curious to see, because you guys go hard, like what for you at least spawned that intensity?
I almost come back to trial and error with it again, because of being in other bands in the past and maybe going too hard. Like, I guess I've always been told, like, I was told in my local scene, I joined this band after like my synthcore band broke up. And they were like, we want you to help us with the stage presence too. Like, it was a dual vocalist hardcore band, which was my first mistake. But the second red flag was they were like, yeah, we want you to help the other vocalist with his stage presence. And I don't know. I think I've just, this sounds like I sound like such a dick saying this, but I feel like I've just always, like, I was born as just a performer. And I say that in the way of like, I was putting on some random, shows for my parents. Like I think I performed all of Shrek as like a one-man play for my parents. Like after it came out, because I watched it so many times, I memorized the entire like plot basically. So I guess like I always just had that craving of like capturing people's attention and like performing. So I think it was a mix of that and then just like being on stage as in high school. I was fortunate enough to start young enough to like get kind of a lot of the cringe moments out of the way. And like, okay, maybe I don't ever want to do this again. Like that specific things or specific, like just different stuff that like other people, if they want to do it, it's fine. But I'm not trying to like just, there's a lot of things I could go into, but I think that's probably what it is just like doing it so much for, I guess, like such a large portion of my life.
Well, and then back to what you said, I mean, I think I can't be dismissed to where like you feel at home and this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And it's just that thing. And I love when people can find that in themselves, regardless of what they do. But I mean, especially as a performer, it's just kind of like, no, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I've been gifted to do. This is what I love doing. This is my high. This is my, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. It just comes, naturally to a certain extent, not a certain extent. I mean, 100% it comes naturally. Obviously, you coach yourself and so on and so forth, but no, it's like you knew this is what you're supposed to do. It's like you mentioned earlier, like when your first band called it quits and you look out the crowd, you're like, I don't want to give this up. This is what, so no, I totally get that. So I guess I'm kind of curious. Have you ever had any big, like, because I was curious, any stage mishaps, like the funny things that have happened on stage or shit that's just kind of like been like, well, didn't expect that, and like throughout your years of of performing?
Yeah. To varying degrees of weirdness, but I won't make it a political podcast, but I will say that on 2016's election, I watched the election results come in that Trump was the new president from a stage in Norman, Oklahoma, playing a live set. And like, I watched the news come in while I was on stage. I was like, this is the weirdest moment of my life. Like that was in time. But yeah, like we've had probably the main one that I can think of is we played this like 11 band show in St. Cloud. It was a very ultimately it was just a very like long day of music, and there was a lot of good bands there and stuff, but we were the last one, and the plan, which we did, I shouldn't say it was just the plan, like we played our full album from 2019 from front to back.
Oh, cool.
And which like would have been cool if there hadn't been 10 bands before us. But by that point, everybody's kind of like done for the most part. And not only did that happen, it was just like a long day, but both Aslan and Preston at the time were both playing guitar and I was playing bass. And they both had like major guitar issues that you can't just like power through for like a song at the literal start of our set. So we go up to play, we're like, all right, here we go. And then I think one of them broke a string, and then one of them was having like an even more serious issue where it was like Preston's guitar had been set up improperly by someone, and so it was doing some like crazy shit that it's not supposed to do. So they both had to like leave the stage and figure that out.
Yeah.
So I ended up just playing like a keyboard vocal cover, or not cover, but like a redone edition of one of our older songs that people there knew, because I was like, I don't know what else to do right now. So that was definitely a mishap. Let's see, I'm trying to think if anything else. Probably the most intense one was we played a show where someone had a seizure in the set. Yeah. And we didn't have, like, it wasn't like a strobe show or anything like that. Yeah. It was just like we were playing. It was in Des Moines, Iowa, and I see the sound guy up in the balcony. It was at a Vaudeville Muse, which was one of my favorite places to play, and they closed during the pandemic, which is very sad. But I see the sound guy like up in the balcony, just like waving us down. And at first I was like, I don't know what that means. And I just kind of like kept going. And then I start seeing like more people like signaling for us to stop. And of course, like when you're in the middle of a song, you really don't want to stop unless you like know, you can like tell what's happening. Cause you're like, man, if I get this wrong and I don't need to stop the set, and then I stop the set, it's going to be real awkward. And so after, it felt like longer than it was probably like 20 seconds of trying to figure out what was going on. I was like really sure that we needed to stop. I think he might have like used the talkback mic and started like saying like, I need you guys to stop or something. So I like signal the band to stop, we get stopped, and then the crowd kind of like separates, and the EMTs came and like grabbed someone and took them out. And then we just kind of like stood and hung out with the crowd for a little bit and just kind of tried to keep like people calm and stuff. And then we were like, well, that song's kind of like we were talking to each other on stage, and we're like, do we just like start where we left off? And I was like, I think we just skipped the rest of the song. Like, I don't think he really come back from that,
No.
So we finished our set, but we just like went to the next song in the set.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no real. You're just kind of like, yeah, that's definite. Like, well, yeah.
But this is the last one I'll say. But like when I started out doing the one-man band thing, I was trying to run everything off of my laptop on FL Studio, and I was like I had so little knowledge of how to do it. I wasn't even running. Like I was running like a full session with like a bunch of MIDI and a bunch of plugins loaded and stuff.
Yeah.
I hadn't even like bounced it to like tracks, like backtracks. And so it started to like stagger and freeze while I was singing. And so I had to try to like stagger my voice to match the like shifting tempos. And it was so embarrassing. And that's actually like one of the things that made me like, you know what? I'm just going to start playing acoustic shows because I can't keep doing this shit.
I mean, so obviously you've done a fair amount of touring, throughout your career and played different places. What would you say? Let's go top 3 favorite cities that you play.
I'm going to say... What comes to mind would be, I'm going to say Denton, Texas, 3rd. Mm-hmm. We played a really cool pizza place in the basement there, and I think it was called like J&J's or something, and it just like packed out, and it was really cool. And Denton's just like a cool little, charming little place, at least the part of it that I was in for when we were on tour. Mm-hmm. And Santa Fe, New Mexico. That was by far, not only is it like really beautiful, and like we stopped on the way into the city and just like explored some like abandoned train stations and stuff out there. It's just like so beautiful, but like the people were so kind and just so like hungry for music.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because a good buddy of mine is out there, and I think you're talking to him about the show, and he messaged me one day. He's like, "Do you know this Gabe guy?" I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
He's like, good egg. I'm like, Gabe's awesome. And so, my buddy, Augustine, he was actually my first guest ever on this podcast. But funny.
That's awesome.
That came to be, yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to Augustine because I was like, he was asking where we played, and it was at, I think, the venue that he ran at the time, and he just like wasn't at that show.
The Cave?
It was called Zephyr or Zephyr.
Oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It was like almost like a storage, like a big like storage unit of sorts, kind of, or like a in a like sort of an industrial area. But the people there were so cool, and like this guy just showed up and was like, "You want to come across the street and look at my like film, like memorabilia collection?" And I was like, "Not really." I don't know if I want to follow a random person I don't know into another area that's not the show. But we did. A group of us went, and it was so cool. He had like so many cool things in there, and we took some pictures with him, and he was so nice. And then number 1, I would say Toledo, Ohio, Holland House. It's like a DIY kind of like garage venue.
Oh, cool!
And we played there on tour, and it was like my birthday, and they made me a cake and sent it to me, and like. Never met any of them before, but it was just such a good vibe there and such a good show. So yeah, those are probably my top.
Sweet. Yeah, our band we're finally kind of starting to cut our teeth in terms of playing out and going different places. So I always like to hear like, where were the good shows? Where did you have the most fun? Where was that? So we could try to plan for the future. But I will say, like, for sure, like New Mexico, even though I haven't played there, I've been there and I've been to shows there. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then we did a run in Texas. We did like 4 or 5 dates in Texas, and I had a ball.
Yeah.
Like, Texas was great.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and the other thing about New Mexico, the green chili. Did you get a chance to get any of that green chili?
No, but Aslan bought like 2 pounds of hatch chilies, and then he had to like incorporate it into every meal because they were starting to go bad.
Nice. Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of the green chili. They put that shit on everything, but I enjoyed it. But so one thing that I do want to talk about before because we're kind of creeping up on our hour mark here, that I think is very important and something that I believe you're an advocate for. We haven't really talked about it, but I've always gotten the vibe from you and your band is mental health and mental health awareness and mental health positivity. Mm-hmm. I guess, I mean, from a musician standpoint and from people outside looking in, what do you think? Because I'm a big proponent of it too, especially from a musician, because I think the creative, and I don't know, I'm obviously not trying to stereotype people here, but I think there's a common thread between creative people and experiencing things with mental health, but not necessarily in a bad way. But what do you think is something that, like, if you had to say something to be like about mental health in the sense that this is misunderstood and this is what's going on, it's like something along those lines, like, in your opinion, what do people get wrong about mental health, and something that they should be more aware of as it pertains to it?
That's a good question. What do people get wrong? Well, I mean, I think in a simple sense, there are some people that almost like try to capitalize on mental health issues and like use it as a platform just like for their own gain and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's sometimes those lines get blurry, right? Like, obviously someone could say that just by like writing a song about mental illness and like getting a Spotify royalty check from it, you know, that you're capitalizing on it.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, I think that's extreme, but so I know that the lines there are blurry, but what I'm talking about is I think sometimes people almost like make mental health advocacy, like they almost try to use it for like nefarious purposes, or like to try to like gain clout, or to try to like get just like money, or to try to like capitalize on certain industries. And I think that like that's one thing that people get wrong, because obviously it's not supposed to be just like a business. you know, like at the end of the day, like, I worked in various mental health fields for a long time, so like I've seen kind of how sick the money side of things are in those senses, but so it's a different kind than that. So it's already, my point is, it's already so fucked up, it's already so hard for people to get the help they need.
Yeah.
So when someone comes in and tries to kind of like act like a mental health advocate, but it's sort of only for like their own gain or their own clout, that always like pisses me off.
Yeah.
But in a less like intense and specific side, because like we've again dealt with people kind of like that before. What do people get wrong? I think that a lot of times, you know, people tend to either pretend like, sometimes people pretend like that they have all the answers or they've got it like all figured out. And I don't think anybody does. I don't think anybody truly, like, I'm suspicious if I know someone that's like, I have no mental health issues at all, I am completely good. Like, I'm almost like, it makes me like scared. I'm like, you never have like anything, because I feel like everyone does. Yeah. And it's just like what you do with it, and like it hits everybody differently. And so I think like no one person has it just like together and figured out. And if they're acting like that, if they're making it a point to be like, I have everything figured out and that's why I can tell you like XYZ, that's like a red flag to me.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it was just kind of fresh on my mind, and I wanted to pick your brain about it, just because I've never been like super, you know, public about, you know, my ongoings with it, but it's an issue, you know, it's something that I have, and, you know, I you know, see therapists for it and all that fun stuff. And it's been great for me, but it was just, I had a really interesting conversation with my therapist about it. And cause she does a lot of stuff with musicians in particular, and things. And so I was just kind of curious to pick your brain about that a little bit deeper, because I could, you know, it just seems like something that you'd be in tune with. But no, I agree. Like, people that are just like, I got it all together, it's like, maybe not.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and I think that furthermore, something that is a comfort for one person, and maybe like that they take solace in, that can be like life almost like it can ruin someone else's life, you know? So like, there's no one solution. So I guess what I mean by that is like some people, religion is like their comfort, and that's where they seek comfort and peace, and that helps them. And maybe they do that without hurting anyone, and that's great. But then some people have been almost destroyed by the church or by like religion.
Yeah.
And so it's not like there's no one answer for everybody. So when someone tries to push like, no, this is specifically what you need, like that again is a huge red flag to me, where it's like, well, just because you pray every night and it makes you feel better, that doesn't mean I wasn't up like panic praying until like 3 a.m. when I was a child because I thought I was going to burn in hell forever, like that sort of thing. Like, I don't know, it's interesting.
That's something I think a lot of people get wrong. It's funny. It's like, I don't necessarily think their heart's in the wrong place, because like they want to help and they want to give you solutions, but it's like, we're not necessarily looking for solutions per se. Like we just need that kind of comfort and understanding and acceptance while we figure out what we need to figure out.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think that's a great epiphany that I just had right now, just based on what you said. It's like, I've been guilty of it too. It's like, oh, this is wrong. Well, this is what you need to do to fix it. Well, is it really? Are they really looking for an answer, or are they just looking to be loved and cared for and know that there's someone there? And I think that's more important.
Yeah, that goes a lot farther, I think, than trying to be like, if you implement this strict regimen, if you do these exact things, follow these like 10 steps that I have laid out, part of which includes pre-saving our new album, then you'll be, completely fixed of all your mental health problems. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of people where you see it and it's almost like it's just used for your own gain. And I think I'm still trying to figure that out, like where the line is with that.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I pretty much have yet to be able to write about something that's not mental health related.
But I think that's a great thing. I mean, because I think people can relate to it and they find comfort in it and they find power in it. And so another big reason why I love your lyrics and your songs is because it gives people that. It's like an outlet and an understanding and can provide self-acceptance in the terms of like, oh, shit, like I can relate to this and this person's going through that same thing and that type of stuff. So I think that's it's a beautiful thing personally. Like, I think it's great.
Our whole album that we released this year, which is called Wrath Like Flowers Upon My Brow, is about the concept of death and how different people handle death and look at death and portray death, and how like damaging it can be to other people when there's like a certain, I guess, like preset thrown on like how you handle the death of a loved one, and how damaging that can be for like the family and the people that are left behind. And how it's usually just, again, for someone's own, like it's someone's gain is like the purpose with it. So yeah, that all kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about.
No, I think that's great. So speaking of your album, I want to leave this last little chunk here for you to plug away whatever you got. I mean, this will probably air, I'm guessing, either Tuesday or Thursday of next week. But if you have shows coming up, plug your albums, plug your links. I mean, obviously I'll put descriptions to all that, or links to all that stuff in the descriptions. But now, Gabe, I want you to brag about you and your band and talk about you and how awesome you are. So here's yours, my friend. Lay it on and lay it on thick.
Wow. All right. Well, if you pre-save our album, no, I'm just kidding. We are at Careful Gaze on all socials, so you can find us there. We're at carefulgaze.com. I don't really expect anybody to necessarily like buy our music unless you really like physical media or something, or you really like having it downloaded. But if you just stream it, really, like Spotify, like if you don't listen to us on Spotify or Apple or something, if you could just do that, that's like so helpful in this day and age, just because that's what everybody seems to care about when they, look at bands. Like I mentioned, we have an album out that we released this year called Wrath Like Flowers Upon My Brow. Put a lot of work and time into that. We have new music coming. we have a show on December 9th with In Search of Solace and a bunch of other sick bands. That's their album release show.
Is that the one that's at the Caboose?
It's at the Caboose.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So I'll see everybody at the awkwardly placed pillar in the middle of the area that the pit is.
Speaking of awkwardly placed pillars, do you remember Station 4? Did you ever play there?
I didn't get to, no.
Oh, man, that was the most – there was a pole, like a dead set middle of stage, and I can't tell you how many times I either hit that thing or damn near broke a bass thing. Sorry, it just popped in my head. Didn't mean to interrupt, but I was like, oh, man, speaking of awkward places to play. Yeah.
No, that's I think someone else has told me that, too, about that place. Yeah, we got – pretty soon we're going to have a little fall – I guess it's at this point it's going to be close to winter, but we have like some fall winter merch coming out as well. And yeah, carefulgaze.com has all like the info as far as like shows and what we're up to. So I would say go there. That's a good place to start.
Awesome. And I'm telling you people, like, I'm not just saying this because he's on my show, but like it's listening to their music is awesome. And live, I mean, Gabe comes off as just a sweaty mess when he's done. Like you can tell. You could tell he puts just everything into it. You 1000% get that. So if you're looking for a kick-ass live show, go watch that. Was it December 9th, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, go December 9th and check them out and give them some love. So, Gabe, thank you so much for being on the show. It has been an honor, a privilege. I thank you so much. To all the people watching out there, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Take it easy. If it's easy, take it twice. Keep it nice. And I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Deuces.